Hello everybody and welcome to this lesson on choreographic devices. This is also under the choreographic process. So I'd like you just to start by remembering each stage of the choreographic process. And you should have your little gesture dances to remember this. So I'll give you 10 seconds, quickly, off you go. Okay, the choreographic process, of course, starts with researching. Okay, so that's where you're investigating, systematic investigation into a topic or a stimuli. Then you'll be improvising around that topic. So improvising is where it's a subconscious thought. So you're not planning any movement. You are simply just moving around your research or your stimuli. Then we have generating, so coming up with the movement material, and then you want to be selecting the best of that movement material. Then you want to be developing, which is stage 5, which is what we're going to go into more detail with today. And then you want to start structuring your final piece. And then you will be refining and synthesizing, so practicing, refining, cleaning up your final dance, and that is the process for creating a choreography. Okay, so stage 5, developing today. So what does it mean to develop? Developing is the way in which movement material is manipulated. So by manipulated, we could change it, we could vary it. So it's getting a motif and changing that motif or movement material. So what is a choreographic device? So a choreographic device is methods used to develop and vary material. So they are specific things or methods that you're going to use in order to change, develop movement material. Now, here are the examples of the choreographic devices you need to know. So you need to know about motif and development, repetition, contrast, highlights, climax, manipulation of number, unison, and canon. Just have a look at that list of choreographic devices, figure out which ones you know and if you could define any of them. Go. Okay, so we're going to look at 5 choreographic devices today, but just to remind you, here are the list. So there are 8 in total that you need to know. We're going to look at 5. So we're going to look at unison, canon, repetition, climax, and highlights. So can you define any of these 5? Have you heard of these 5? Have you already practically demonstrated any of these maybe in lesson time? Just have a think and maybe give some examples of any times you have used these choreographic devices. I'll give you 20 seconds to have a think. Okay, so defining these choreographic devices. So we'll start with canon, which is when the same movement overlaps in time. Okay, so the most simple example is, of course, the Mexican wave. So everybody performs that same waving of the arms motion. However, it overlaps in time, so happens one after the other. But it must be the same movement and it must overlap in time. That is canon. Unison is the opposite of that. So it's where the dancers are performing the same movement at the same time. So if you are in unison together, you are performing the exact same thing at the exact same time. Repetition, nice and simple, simply repeating something. So performing the same action or phrase again, a repeat of what just happened. Okay, slightly trickier ones, maybe ones that you haven't heard of. A highlight. Okay, and highlight and climax are very similar, so pay attention to the difference. So a highlight is important moments in a dance. Moments, so more than one. So there's going to be a variety of different highlights throughout a dance. Whereas a climax is the most significant moment in the dance. So the climax is the absolute peak, the most significant moment in the dance, but there might be many different little highlights throughout the whole dance. And that is the clear difference between highlights and a climax. Okay, moving on to trialing all this knowledge out in exam questions. First exam question. This is a very common exam question, so we need to get our head around answering this. So describe a motif you could choreograph for your dance. Your answer should refer to action, space, and dynamics. And this question is worth 3 marks. Now, as always, you have to unpick this question to really find out what it is asking you. So describe a motif. So first of all, you need to know what a motif is. You could choreograph for your dance. This is a hypothetical situation, a hypothetical dance. So it hasn't been choreographed before. You are making up this dance. Your answer should refer to actions, space, and dynamics. Okay, here we go. I have created an example answer for you. So let's see if I would get all 3 marks. Starting facing the side, I perform a smooth balance with my torso tilted and I fall forward onto a straight pathway. I recover by performing a swift roll on a low level. I finish with a soft arm circle gesture. So my motif is a sequence or phrase of movements that later can be developed or varied. Now, a motif must consist of around 3 to 4 movements. And how I'm going to achieve these 3 marks is obviously stating 3 to 4 movements, a motif, but also I must state actions, space, and dynamics. This motif has to be sequential, meaning it has to flow and be written as if it's a dance. I have to be able to read all of your answers and I could read them like instructions and I could perform your motif. It's no good whatsoever if I read this out and I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what dance it is. I couldn't possibly dance it. Whereas this example, starting facing the side, great, straight away we're facing the side. Form a smooth balance, lovely, with my torso tilted. Fall forward onto a straight pathway, recover by performing a swift roll on a low level, and finish with a soft arm circle gesture. You could dance that easily. Simple instructions. Let's find the different actions, the different space, and the different dynamics within this answer. So I've just talked about that, but just to remind you of how we're going to achieve all 3 marks, you must refer to action-space dynamics. You're ensuring the motif is sequential, meaning it makes sense for a dancer. And you're ensuring you have a motif, meaning you need 3 to 4 movements. So, facing the side, bam, I've given an element of space. Just have a think, what element of space have I given? The answer is direction. I have told you straight away that I am facing the side. I've said my direction, my element of space. I perform a smooth, so I'm telling you how I've done it. I'm telling you a dynamic. A smooth balance, of course a balance is an action. Torso tilted and fall are actions. Forward, another element of space and another direction I've told you. Straight pathway, that is of course an element of space as well. I recover by performing a swift roll. So I'm telling you how I'm performing the roll. And then I've gone on to say my level. So of course if I'm rolling, I am on a low level. I finished with a soft arm circle gesture. So not just an arm circle gesture, I've told you how I'm doing it softly. Okay, so this example answer is hitting all the criteria, so that would be a perfect 3 out of 3. What we're going to do now is write down this question in your books, please, and have a go yourself. Okay, let's move on to exam question number 2. So now we're using our choreographic devices, which we've just learned about. We've just learned about 5. We're going to use one in an exam question here. So describe one way you could create a climax in the motif previously described. 2 marks. Let's break this down. Let's work out what they're asking us. So one way you could create a climax. Ding, 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 light bulb should go off in your head. You know what a climax is. A climax is a choreographic device that we've just spoken about, the most significant moment in the dance. And this must be from the motif you've previously described. So these questions actually link together. So the 3-mark answer motif that you've previously described links in with this question. So, knowing what a climax is, this is why you must know your subject terminology. A climax is the most significant moment of the dance. Therefore, let's have a look at how we're going to achieve these 2 marks. Here is my example answer. So, I would develop the roll by performing an explosive jump into a quick roll on a low level. This change in levels, speed and dynamics will make this the most significant moment in the motif. Okay, so to achieve all 4 marks, you must develop one moment from the motif you've previously described in the last question. So you're not making up a totally new dance. It has to be from the previous motif. So I've picked the swift roll on a low level. Okay, I've changed that moment to make it the most significant moment. So you want to ask yourself, how are you going to make this the most significant moment of the dance? Are you going to make it quicker? Are you going to make it bigger? Are you going to make it faster? What is going to happen? And I've chosen to add an explosive jump and then make the roll quicker on a low level. This contrast in levels and the speed is going to make this the most significant moment in the dance. And I've actually stated that. I've stated what I'm going to do, and I've stated what I'm going to change, and I've stated that that will make it the most significant moment in the motif. I will therefore achieve 2 full marks with that answer. Your turn. We've just looked at the example. We've just looked at how we're going to achieve that. So using your motif that you have previously described, describe one way you could create a climax. Off you go. Okay, now some follow-up questions. So a simple one for 2 marks, define canon. Okay, so canon is one of our choreographic devices. You need to be able to define it. So for 2 marks, you are defining canon. Then number 2 is describe one way you could add canon to the motif previously described. Now, to add canon, you need more than one dancer. So for this example, let's pretend we have a dance of a trio. So therefore, we have 3 dancers performing your motif. So remember, this is the motif that you have previously described. So the very first question, the motif you've described, that is the one you're going to use. This is now a trio. You have 3 dancers. You must describe one way you could add canon to that motif. I would highly recommend you write out these questions in full and then you answer these questions, please. Off you go. Okay, well done everybody. That is Choreographic Devices Lesson 1. You have completed that and you have completed 4 different exam questions. Well done. If there are any questions, please look back at your notes. Please look at the Frog site. Please email me if you have any further questions you want to figure out. Well done everybody.